We're always told that if you eat right, you stay fit, your heart must be healthy, right? But what if that's not the whole story? What if even the fittest people you know are walking around with a serious, hidden risk? That's the really unsettling question we're going to dig into today.
So, let's talk about Dan. He's a marathon runner, literally the last person on earth you'd ever think would have heart trouble. He had zero symptoms, no warning signs at all, and yet he was on the brink of a disaster. His story hits home a crucial truth. Being fit isn't some magic shield, and what you don't know, well, it can be fatal.
And look, Dan's story isn't some one-off, bizarre case. The shocking reality is that heart attacks often strike completely out of the blue, hitting people who honestly believe they are the picture of health.
The one thing that connects all these stories? Pure shock. You've got Dan, the marathoner, who finds out his arteries are 95% blocked. Then there's Ron, a non-smoker, a vegetarian, who still has a heart attack. And Darren, a cricket coach, whose very first thought as it was happening was, no way, this can't be happening to me. It all points to this massive gap in how we think about heart health.
And we are not talking about a small problem here. This is global. Almost 18 million people died from this in just 1 year. Think about that. That's nearly a third of every single death on the planet. These aren't just numbers. They're people, they're families, all affected by something that a lot of the time could have been prevented if we just knew what to look for.
Okay, so if it isn't always about a bad lifestyle, what's the real culprit here? What's the hidden danger? Well, the real story behind most heart attacks is the story of plaque. It's this silent, slow-building process called atherosclerosis that happens inside our arteries, totally hidden from view.
Now, atherosclerosis is the fancy scientific name, but this analogy makes it so much clearer. Just picture rust slowly and silently forming inside a water pipe. Over years, it just builds up layer by layer, making the pipe narrower, and you have no idea it's even happening until one day the flow just stops.
So how does this actually happen? It's a four-step process. First, the super smooth inner lining of an artery gets a little bit of damage. Your body, trying to help, sends in the bad cholesterol to patch things up, which kicks off some inflammation. Then, white blood cells show up, gobble up the cholesterol, and form this soft, gooey plaque with a thin little cap over it. But here's the kicker. The real danger isn't that slow narrowing of the pipe. It's step 4. That little cap can suddenly tear open. Your body freaks out, thinks it's a major injury, and instantly forms a blood clot to seal it. And that clot can block the entire artery in a matter of seconds.
And that's the heart attack. An artery that might be thinner than the ink tube in a pen is suddenly completely plugged. The heart muscle that it was feeding is now starved for oxygen and starts to die. That is the event that changes everything and can be, devastating or even fatal.
So all of this, it leads us to a really big shift in how we need to think about this. For decades, we've basically been guessing our risk based on these general factors. But we can now stop guessing and start knowing by actually looking under the hood and seeing what's going on in the arteries themselves.
Just look at this breakdown. On the left, you've got guessing. That's the old way, looking at risk factors like high cholesterol. But these are just associations. It's like, yeah, speeding is associated with car accidents, but it doesn't mean every single person who speeds is going to crash. But on the right, you have knowing. This is about looking for the actual problem, the rust in the pipe. Tests like a calcium score can directly measure if there's plaque there, telling you if you have the disease, no matter what your risk factors look like.
Okay, so now that we get the problem, what do we actually do about it? Well, there's a really clear, actionable plan for prevention, which the source material calls the 10 Heart Commandments.
All right, the first 4 are really the bedrock, the absolute foundation of it all. They might sound a bit familiar, but they are completely non-negotiable. Number 1, don't smoke, and that means any of it, vaping included. 2, get moving. About 150 minutes of moderate exercise a week is the goal. 3, eat real food, not a bunch of ultra-processed stuff. And 4, watch the alcohol. Everything else we talk about is built on top of this.
Now, the next set is all about being aware and teaming up with your doctor. You have to keep your blood pressure in check. You have to be on top of diabetes if you have it. And then there's number 7, which is the whole point of what we've been talking about. Know your cardiovascular risk precisely. That means going from guessing to knowing. It also means understanding your cholesterol, talking with your doctor about medications if they're needed, and finally, build a support team. You don't have to do this alone.
I mean, think about it this way. We all take our cars in for service to make sure they don't break down, right? We don't wait for smoke to start pouring out of the engine. So the final question is pretty simple.
why would we treat our own hearts, the single most important engine we will ever own, any differently? Isn't it time we all finally looked under the hood?